floor and you feel the pumping of the wheel. To find the glory, got to make your life shine. You gotta be working to get the woman and the wine. Keep the beat and get your hands in the air. Shuffle the beat 'cause it's an African affair. To Buffalo Park and our home at St. George's, we're bringing the silverware back on the gorgeous. That's the way of the warrior. That's the way of the warrior. That's the way of the warrior. That's the everyday warrior.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Gino's Spot on a Saturday morning for us. It's a Saturday morning for us at 10 o'clock. I know it's a very weird time, but that's because we are beaming across from a special guest from Australia. All the way from Australia, we've got Ashley Gray in. Ashley Gray has written a book and has a deep knowledge of cricket. He wrote a book about the Rebels, the West Indian, the Rebel team that came across and played here. A very interesting story there. So we have got Fires van Vuuren in the studio as well with us, and which we'll be introducing in a little moment. But firstly, thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to Spar for supporting Gino's Spot over the last 3 years already. I think it's almost going to be our 3-year anniversary with Spar. It'd be fantastic. An amazing bunch of people that have helped us out over this time, and also to Amobia for our internet. Thank you so much to Amobia for our internet, and then Fitch and Leeds. Our Fitch and Leeds support has always been there. We have a giveaway at the end of the show for anybody that's watching, that we can give away a case of Fitch and Leeds, so you can slurp up your gin and tonics if you need to. We are obviously. Send in the comments, send in your comments, send in your any questions that you've got. Good morning, Brian Wilkinson. Lovely to see you as well. I know it's a strange time for the guys, our usual viewers. Obviously, it's on a Tuesday night, and for those Tuesday night watchers, we are rebroadcasting. This is a live rebroadcast, so we're not actually here live. We are probably just watching and checking at the comments. So you're welcome to put in some comments and stuff as well if you're watching on the Tuesday night. Tuesday night is our usual Gino Spot night, and you can subscribe on YouTube. It is the best way to watch Gino Spot is on YouTube, because you can comment and you can cast it to your TV if you're quite an internet guru. Right. So we are not going to waste too much time. We are going to get straight into our guest today, who is Ashley Gray, all the way from Australia. We're going to get Mike van Vuuren into our interviewer's chair, and we're heading to Firing on All Cylinders with Mike van Vuuren.
Ooh, welcome to the show. Now is your time to shine. We're gonna have a like a chat tonight. Another good time.
All right, and we're in the studio with Mike van Vuuren. How's Mike? Nice
Hello,
to see
Gino,
you again.
nice to see you.
And,
Good morning.
And hi to Ashley Gray from across the seas.
Hello, guys. How are you? Great to be on your show.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much.
We're so glad to have you on, man. We don't often get up this early in the morning, Ashley. We're not used to it.
we're in the midst of a long weekend, Ash. We had a public holiday yesterday.
We did.
Okay, nice.
To commemorate
Excellent.
Youth Day.
Youth Day. It's Youth Day. So we said it was. It's not really us. We're not really involved.
Yeah, they don't have an old man's day.
Come on. You guys are youngsters, surely. Young adults.
Ashley,
In our lunchtime.
yeah, fab to have you on, and I know you've got the Unforgiven, the book that you've written. We're going to get into that as well, but just a bit of for the guys that don't know you, a little of an introduction from yourself as to your journalism career and what you do.
Okay, yeah. I do a fair bit of cricket writing and other journalism as well, whatever it takes to make ends meet.
Yes.
I've got a few things in this year's edition of Wisden, which you can read, and also contributed to the Cricketer and various other publications, and occasionally write for the Daily Telegraph here in Sydney, on cricket.
Okay.
So yeah, how did I get into it? Well, I suppose it's just really, the thing is,
An Australian thing.
Yeah, I have a depth of knowledge,
Yeah.
and from being a kid, I was obsessed by cricket in a way that perhaps kids these days could never be, because they're distracted by other things. But I was, I knew all the averages of all the Australian players. I could tell you the crowds, crowd numbers and all this kind of stuff. I was really into it,
Are you a little bit OCD then? Are you a bit of a?
It does sound like that now that I describe it, but I wouldn't. I mean, I was still, I was out there playing the game as well, but I played soccer and everything else, But yeah, when I get into something, I get into it,
Yeah. Well, tell me what your cupboard looks like. Have you got your underpants and your socks and your t-shirts in a little pile?
No, it's an absolute mess to describe.
I like that. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. So Ash, when did this? When did you first start focusing on cricket? And I imagine it must have been an Ashes tour, or not?
Oh, at school even probably.
Yeah, just when I was at school,
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, all the boys were into it. It was.
Yeah.
It was a big thing.
The Australians were big in. Yeah.
It still is, I'm talking like late 70s, early 80s, and sort of Lily Chapel Marsh era.
Yeah. Great era.
Those guys were charismatic characters, and
yes,
they
great characters.
Yeah, they had appeal beyond just cricket. In the
Yeah.
Well,
if you're talking about that, I mean, it was probably the time when that whole Benson Hedges World Series thing started. So it created a different. You looked at cricket in a different way from that period.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Did you watch any of those? Sorry, Ash.
No, I was probably a bit too young to get there myself, and I lived in Newcastle, which is sort of 160 kilometres from Sydney. So
south of Sydney.
Yeah, we've also got one. It's in
north.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've also got a Newcastle.
Yeah.
Well, it seems that the Empire dispensed Newcastles all over the world, didn't it?
Yes, it was wherever there was coal. If there's coal there, then they made another Newcastle.
I don't know about your Newcastle, but our Newcastle is shit. As is Newcastle in the UK.
Yeah,
it's not a place you want to go and.
Oh, they speak very highly of you, Fires.
I'm sure they do.
Look, it was it was a real city, like there's a couple 100,000 people there, but it's a mining and steel city. But it had its charms,
much like our Newcastle. I don't recommend.
When I went searching for some of the guys, I went to a very tiny island called Nevis in the Caribbean, and in the north part of that island. I mean, it's a little pinprick island. It's very tiny.
Yeah.
But in the north part of that island, guess what? There was a Newcastle.
Well, before we get into the book, though, I haven't actually told Gino. Well, in fact, I think I told Gary yesterday. I was sitting at home one Sunday afternoon. I can't remember how many years ago, when I got my first and probably only ever call. In fact, Neil Radford's called me on Messenger. You were the first guy to ever call me on Messenger, and I got this funny ring, and I didn't know where the ring was coming from. It was a Sunday afternoon, probably around 4 o'clock, so I imagine it would have been about 12 o'clock in the evening in Sydney.
Yep.
And there's this Aussie voice on the phone. At first, I thought you were taking the mickey out of me.
I had to do that response quite often during the...
I'm sure you did.
People often thought that I was a joke, or that it wasn't really happening. But but I can't remember how I got your number. Did I tell you how I got your number?
I've got absolutely no idea, and that's what made it even more intriguing for me. But of greater interest was, I thought to myself when I put the phone down, an Australian writing a book on the West Indian rebel tour to South Africa, 30 odd years after the event.
Wow.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I soon discovered that it was a genuine call, and I mean, that's where the relationship began, and it was great working
Yeah,
with you.
and you were good to me, Mike, because you not only had your own stories, especially about Ezra Mosley, but you were able to link me up with other guys, that played on those rebel tours. So it really, that was.
Mike knows absolutely everybody.
Not really. I wanted to ask you, whilst on that subject, there was a guy, I remember, and are we allowed to go into the detail of this without
Of course.
getting poleaxed by governments? There was a guy, one of those tourists, in fact, there were two of them, if I'm not mistaken, who didn't want to talk to you for fear of losing their jobs back home in the West Indies.
Yeah.
And one of the guys had actually played here, and I remember referring you to a guy called Aubrey Duff.
That's
He
right.
was a great soccer player. Did you ever talk to him?
Yeah, and he knew Trotman. That's who you're talking
That's
about.
right. Well, Alvin
Yeah.
Greenwich, in fact. Alvin
Yeah.
Greenwich.
Sorry, Alvin Greenwich. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, Alvin
What a
was
great
just
guy
very
he was.
shy, very shy guy, and but he, he worked. He was
He
coaching.
worked for the army.
Yeah, but
Didn't he work for the
defense-
army?
Yeah, he was coaching the Barbados defense cricket team. Yeah, and
Yeah.
he kept on saying that he would talk to me, but he had to get permission from his boss, and that never came.
Yes.
I think he was reluctant to ask him because
Yeah.
it was still a controversial subject.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose the guys they didn't want to bring it in if it didn't have to.
Yeah, exactly. So I had to really, put my case to everyone. I had to say that what I was doing was, filling in a gap in history and allowing you, like whoever I was talking to take your part in history, and to fill it out and to justify yourself and to get some validation and closure as well, because a lot of the guys suffered a lot of abuse and whatever for going on those tours.
Before we
certainly
get
did.
there, though. Yeah. So I beg your pardon.
Yeah, go on. Sorry, Mike. You
No.
continue.
Before we get there, you've been very kind to me of late. You've gone in search of some great players in Australia.
Yep.
And I'm certainly very grateful for you getting the signatures of Ian Chappell, Pascoe, Norman O'Neill. I mean, what a great signature.
Neil Harvey, in fact.
Neil Harvey, I beg your pardon, and then Dougie Walters. And the Dougie Walters trip intrigued me because I wondered to myself now, are you going to get compelled to have a few beers with him?
Yeah.
Or has he gone off the beer now? No, he's gone off the fags.
He's off the fags. He's off
And
the
the beers.
fags. He's off the fags, but he's compensated by having more beer, I think.
Well, I was telling, we were talking about Dougie Walters before the show, and I remember Kerry O'Keefe saying that when you shared a room with Dougie Walters on tour, never walk in there and pick up a can thinking it's got a nice cold or remnants of a nice cold Coke in, because it's going to have 40 cigarette butts in.
God, I've done that before. Yeah.
And just for what it's worth, I mean, Doug Walters must be a really great guy.
Yeah, he's a natural raconteur as well, Mike.
Yes.
So when you're in his company, he's very entertaining, and when I saw him to get the autograph that you wanted, it was at a
Thank
special
you.
day where he was talking with Lenny in front of, I suppose, about 50 or so people at a bowling club, and it was a special event. And he got up and he charmed the pants off everyone because he's just a natural, and
Yeah.
he's got good stories from back when he played, but also, he has interesting opinions about what's going on now. But he was. I actually sat opposite him, and also Lenny Pascoe, and they were
Another
great.
character.
Yeah.
The-
Dougie's still going, and he must be. I think he's 77 or 78.
Yeah,
he does a
he
lot
must
of
be very
fishing.
close.
He's
I be-
keen. He does a lot
Fisherman.
of fishing.
I believe so.
They all are. So is Lenny and Jeff Thompson as well.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
and they're still good mates. They hang out.
Yeah.
And Dougie said that every couple of months or so he goes over to Ian Chappell's and has dinner there, or vice versa. Because Ian
Right,
Chappell
okay.
lives in Sydney now, so
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you new to Ian Chappell?
Sorry.
Are you near to Ian Chapel in Sydney?
Well, it's probably about a 40-minute drive. Yeah, but he's actually in Sydney. He's in the northern suburbs of Sydney. On the beaches up north there. Yeah, but
great character as well.
Yeah, he was great, and when I met him, I brought my son along because I just thought it would be.
Yes, I remember the pictures.
Yeah.
The Chapels always bring up that whole rolling the ball underarm delivery.
Yeah.
Yes, it's Greg Chappell. The interesting thing about that is that I don't know if it's folklore or not, but I remember that Graham Pollock was the one that claimed that he could have hit that for 6 anyway. He would have flipped it up with his foot and then smacked it. He actually did it. They tell me that he did an experiment and flipped it up and smacked it for 6.
Well, it's an interesting point that Gino raises because
why not?
he did, and I remember there was a test done on that. You're quite right.
Yes.
I can't remember if it was Graham or not, but. What about the LBW issue then? Because if it's in line, it's a legitimate ball.
But if you smack it, surely it's not. I don't know.
Yeah, but he's gonna. What they did, they put their foot down, let the ball hit their foot, and jump up and then
pelt it.
But the interesting thing,
Yeah.
No, I was just going back to Dougie Walters. You know, he came to South Africa in 1970, and I think I'm right in saying he was called the Baby Bradman.
Oh, right.
And didn't he start off with a double 100 in Test cricket? A double 100 in a century in the same game.
No, he got 160 odd against England, 65, something like that. Yeah.
And you know, he arrived here with this huge reputation, and I think a lot of it was created by the then captain Bill Lurry. And I think if I remember clearly, Doug Walters' top score in that series was 36. And as a child, or as a kid, I was very disappointed because we had read a lot about this guy. And then, you know, because we were distanced and also isolated, we didn't really follow it because it wasn't really in our news and in our faces, and we didn't have television. And then more recently, I started seeing those Ian Chappell clips on YouTube. I mean, for a player, and I'm right. I think I'm right in saying Dougie Walters got 300s before lunch in a session in Test cricket. New Zealand, West Indies, and India, England.
Yeah, and apparently West Indies and England. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, England was at was when he hit Bob Willis. Yep. He had 3 before tea. Yeah, he had 3 before tea. He had 97 with 1 ball to go, or in the last over. And the last ball, he banged it for 6.
Oh, no way!
And that's when Ian Chappell told the ball to go and sit in the shower, just to see how Dougie would react. And Dougie walked in, sat down, lit a fag, opened a beer, didn't say a word, and basically just took the piss out of the Australians. But I'm grateful for you getting that signature because he, to me, must have been a great player.
Garth Webster saying there that the photo of Doug Walter with both feet in the air avoiding Procky.
Quite correct. At Kingsmead.
It's a classic.
Garth, morning. He was sort of up like this with both his feet off the ground. And I think what actually happened, and I know this is not really what we're talking about, but what actually happened, and I think what riled the South Africans in 1970, Ash, was when they arrived, they no sooner got off the plane, and Bill Lurry said, well, Ian Chappell's the best batsman in the world, Doug Walters is close behind, and we're going to thump the South Africans, without taking into account the fact that I think they'd been in India for 4 months. And I remember reading an article not so long ago about Keith Stackpole opening the fridge and a rat running out of the fridge. So the food, etc., the living conditions were
in
shocking.
India. Okay.
Yeah, and then I think after 4 or 5 months they came here, and the guys were finished. Really, I mean, this was a bridge too far.
It was a bridge too far. Yeah.
But great cricketers.
Yeah, and it was a difficult to India.
Yeah. So Ash, a question Gino asked me beforehand, and I didn't have the answer. You obviously played cricket at a level.
Yeah. Did you play it at all?
Yeah, I played. Yeah, and I still play with my son because he's 13 and he's he plays in the summer he plays every Saturday. Look, I played probably until the age of 16, 17.
Okay. Schoolboy stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and I played against guys who played in the first grade competition in
Yes.
Newcastle, which was a good competition. It had guys like Gary Gilmore,
Yeah, I remember him well.
Graham Calling, who played
Yeah.
Test cricket for Australia against England. Yeah, but
Were you more
yeah,
interested in stats than you were in actually playing?
no, not really. I mean, I wasn't really. I mean, the stats thing was just more to give me an understanding of why they were so good, you know, rather than just for the sake of stats. You know, I mean, I was into it for that reason more than anything else. But the thing is, you know, when you get to 16 and 17, you get distracted, and as well, what happens is that you know you're playing with a lot better players, and I suppose you get found out a bit more. But also, the opportunities become fewer because there are certain batsmen who will dominate an innings, and so you might not get a bat, and then then you might not get a bowl, and you sort of need to lose interest a bit,
So, the distraction that you referred to, was it beer?
Woman.
Or woman?
Right, yeah. Well, I mean, and I was at school, and you just sort of, maybe you're right, maybe it was beer and women,
Did you study then, you did journalism or something, or?
Well, I did. What did I do? I actually did journalism for a little while. Then I did majored in English and Australian literature and creative writing and history at Sydney University. So, that's where I was. But I sort of came in through the back door to journalism. I came in through because I played around in bands and things, and then I got into.
Okay.
You're
talking to the right guy, yeah.
I'm the band
He's talking
guy.
to the right guy, yeah. You're talking to the right man, yeah. I'll send you a few links.
Okay, yeah, and then I started doing music reviews for the street press here, and then.
Okay.
What's the street press?
I had all that knowledge. Street press, they were like, and they're still around, I think. They were like free music newspapers that came out every week.
Okay.
They had interviews with bands that were coming into town, and also they had the sort of guide to the gigs that they were playing and interviews with
top bands. Are you talking about top bands or
some
just
top
local
bands?
bands?
Underground, the whole thing, the full gamut.
Wow. Okay. Cool.
So I got a job there, and then just sort of.
You get landed with a cricket thing. It's like, we need somebody to do the cricket. Oh, come on, Ashley, get in here.
And if you've got knowledge, you can
Yeah.
which I did. So
And then, I mean, I suppose you were writing for these news news companies, but then how did the book then come about? What got you interested in the Rebel Tour? And
A great question, especially 30 odd years after the event.
Well, I had no reason to be interested in it, other than being a cricket fan. But I was on the 2003 Australian tour of West Indies. I was doing some reporting for Inside Cricket magazine here, and it was a one-day game at Sabina Park, and after the game, I was in a taxi, and the guy noticed my pass that was dangling around my neck, my press pass, and he, we started talking about cricket, and he said, "Look, there's a guy I know who used to play Test cricket, and he's homeless, and he's just we could probably find him." Because he always hangs around this certain area, and he'll just be sitting in the gutter or something like that.
Jeez.
And I was like, oh, and it sort of clicked in my head. Well, this is a story, this is interesting.
So is that how the whole idea came about?
That's just how I got interested in it, and it turned out to be Richard Austin. And see, the thing was, I was thinking at the time, you would never find a guy in Australia or New Zealand or England or even South Africa, I suppose, who played Test cricket, who was, living rough,
They all
get
homeless.
taken care of, basically,
Yeah.
So yeah, he took me to meet him, and we met him, and he was at he was actually sitting in a gutter, and he was running with a gang of I don't know, drug addicts, really. They wanted money
Terrible.
to speak to him, and so I got chatting to him, and he said the reason why he was in the gutter was because he'd been to South Africa, on the rebel tours, and he came back, and when he came back, he was ostracized by his countrymen who thought that he'd sold his soul in order to take the money, to go to South Africa, and in their eyes it was blood money. So he had all this money, but he had no friends, and people who used to be, he couldn't get a job, and he just sort of spiraled into this lifestyle, and it was all very sad. And I thought, well, there's obviously a bigger story there.
Sure.
Yeah, and so over the ensuing 10 to 15 years, I interviewed Lawrence Rowe and a few others, and I thought, well, maybe I could put it together in a book and tell the story of all the rebels, and that was the idea.
And Ash, just going back to Richard Austin, did you physically sit on the street interviewing him, or did you have a place to take him to?
I sat on the street, yeah. I mean, if you look at the back of the book, that picture of him there, that's a picture we took of him sitting in the gutter. That's him sitting in the gutter.
Yeah.
And I was sitting right next to him. In fact, I've got a picture of me sitting next to him. So he was there. I mean, he was very. I really liked him. He was a fun guy, and he told a good story, and he just sort of, despite being in the gutter, he still had a great sense of humor, and I really appreciated that.
I was going to ask you if he was compos mentis.
Yeah.
When you spoke to him.
Yeah. He was there. Yeah, but he.
Yeah.
You could see that he was ravaged by being on the street. He just looked shabby, and his eyes were kind of a bit sort of puffy, and you could see that he'd obviously indulged in drugs for quite a while. And he was just looking worse for wear, really.
Is he still around? Is he?
No, he died.
Is he long gone?
2015,
2015. Okay. And I mean, was this a common thing for these guys? I mean, I know some of the guys stayed behind here and played cricket here for many years afterwards.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like Sylvester Clark and Alvin Calliter, and
a lot of them did. Collis King,
Ezra Mosley.
The other one I remember you telling me about when you were really into the book was Herbert Chan.
Yeah.
Who I think came here as a replacement on the first tour.
Yes, he did.
There was a story about him as well, Ash.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I found him in a sort of ghetto suburb of Kingston, and he was, he was on medication basically, because he was. By the stage he was full-blown schizophrenic, and but the problem was that he came back to Jamaica from the rebel tours, the first one anyway, and the money that he got, he says that it was taken by one of his girlfriends at that time, and he tried to get it back, and he just went into a bit of a spiral, and it triggered something in his psyche, and he became a bit of a mess, to quote his sister, his half sister, who said that he wasn't the same man, and this was combined with the fact that he couldn't get a job at coaching in cricket or doing any of the things that he was good at, because no one wanted to touch him because he'd been on the rebel tours, so he was toxic in that way, so I met him in Greenwich Town. That's the suburb in Kingston. It's right near the water, actually. It's it wasn't a ghetto, it'd be a beautiful area, you know.
Marina.
Yeah, well, potentially, you know. Yeah, but he was, you know, he wasn't. I mean, he had a memory for things in the past, but he spoke kind of slowly with a bit of a slur, and you know,
Yeah.
I had to have his half brother there to sort of translate what he was saying, you know, because it was difficult.
The accent as well.
And then and they all speak the patois, which is
Yeah.
hard to understand anyway. And he was
Yeah.
he was a, you know, he was a. I really enjoyed getting to know him because I could see that, you know, the rebel tours had really destroyed him, you know, and that you know, he needed a lot of help. And I've since asked people at the Jamaica Cricket Association that I've got to know whether he can be helped or whether he can be taken to, you know, shown some compassion and maybe taken to test matches or whatever, or, you know, for a day. But then again, on the other hand, he doesn't really like being with people the same way that he used to because
Amazing,
yeah.
And so Ash, just to go back again, so the taxi driver's now taken you to Richard Austin.
Yep.
And you then did an interview with Richard Austin. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Yes,
and also possibly just explain the what you did. I mean, basically your the way that you put this whole thing together. So did you go with a list of people, or did you know, that kind of thing?
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, that was in 2003, so that was a long time before I actually did the book. But
Okay.
yeah, he was. You know, he was. Like I said, he's a fun guy, and he actually wanted, but he was also delusional. You know, he wanted me to call up Kerry Packer as if I had Kerry Packer's phone number.
I recall. I recall you, Sam. It's sad. I recall you telling me that.
And he said, well, you know, get on to Kerry, and because he was saying, well, we're good mates, we're good friends, and I could go over there and coach New South Wales, you know. But he was 48 at this time, and he was not in any condition to coach anyone, you know. So what happened was that, you know, I did have to have a list of all the players, and I had to contact them beforehand. The first guy I contacted was a guy called Ray Winter, who was fairly unknown, but he was a fast bowler, sort of slingy action.
Correct.
And I remember getting his number through a Facebook page for the Kingston Cricket Club, and just this young guy, who happened to be in the office at the time, just switched on the computer and saw that there was a message on Facebook, and just answered it. You know, so it was just pure luck. You know, and he said, "Oh well, I've got Ray Winter. You know, I can get Ray Winter's contact details." So I called up Ray, and Ray, you know, once again he was sort of disbelieving. You know? He was like, "Yeah, sure, whatever."
Like me.
Because he couldn't fathom why I'd be wanting to tell the story. But when I explained it to him, when I explained that, you know, it was a chance for him to take his place in history, you know, he was. And when I showed him that I had the knowledge as well,
Yes.
you know, he responded to me, you know, and so there was a lot of that, and obviously being a white guy wanting to tell a black guy's stories, you know, that was difficult as well. I had to, but I had to just show them that I was authentic, you know, and that I was honourable in my you know, my sort of mission, you know, that
And how long between talking to Richard Austin and Ray Winter? What was the sort of period of time?
Oh right, it was probably 13 or 14 years. So, you know, it was
man. So you had spoken to Richard Austin and kept this idea, in the back of your head all this time.
Yeah. Well, see,
and then
Richard Austin's story appeared in the Sydney Morning Herald, right, in 2003.
Okay.
And
you wrote the story.
Yes, and it got a lot of good responses, you know. But but the thing is, writing a book requires, you know, a lot of things to fall in place. You know, you've got to have the time to do it.
Yeah.
And you know, I have had a young family, and you can't just put time aside and say, well, I'm going to write a book and not have income coming in.
Are you still married then?
Just, yeah.
Just checking it.
So 12 years elapsed, plus minus, between your first chat to Richard
More than
Austin.
that, I think it was 14 years. Yeah.
Gee whiz, okay.
Yeah.
And so then this thing started to sort of mix around in your brain, started thinking, okay, well maybe we can track down more of these guys.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and one of the good things was, I mean, people often talk about Facebook and they say that it's bad and people waste so much time on it, but it was actually really good for me because when I actually went to the Caribbean, I was able to speak to guys like Lawrence Rowe, the captain. Then I would publish a photo
Lawrence
of him,
Rowe.
post a photo of him, and that would show to other guys that I was the real deal. That here I was. I'd spoken to their captain, and if the captain's keen,
yes,
I should be as well.
Did you struggle to get through to Lawrence Rowe initially? Was he happy to talk to you, or because he was the one who really caught it in the neck, if I'm not mistaken? Probably more so than the rest of them.
Yeah. Reputation-wise, he did.
Yeah.
But he's a strong character. I mean, in any group of 20 men, there are just going to be guys who are more sensitive than others, or more sensitive to criticism than others. There's some that are going to be a bit more resilient. Rowe was, after a bit of negotiating, we eventually worked out.
I was going to ask you that question.
Was he? I mean, I presume a lot of them weren't keen at all.
Yeah, and occasionally I had to throw in financial incentives, like I had to buy their dinner or their lunch or their bus fare or whatever, just to get them on board, because the Caribbean is a very poor area, and I mean that's obviously one of the reasons why the guys took the money that came on the rebel tours.
Yeah, and Ash, that's another question I wanted to ask you. Did any of them ever divulge how much money they were paid?
Oh yeah, they were paid on average about $100,000 US. So that's a lot of money back in 1983.
Yeah, I think it was like 4.5 to 1 at the time. 4-5 to 1.
Yeah.
So it's a substantial amount of money.
But
it would have set them up for life, pretty much, if they used it the right way.
Yeah.
Yes. The other guy that seemed to suffer quite badly was it Derek Murray or David Murray, the wicketkeeper?
Yeah.
David.
Sadly, he passed away last year.
Yes, correct.
Okay. I wrote an obituary for him in this year's Wisdom, because, I mean, I had an insight into him that few others had, because I spent close to a week with him in Barbados, and he was a lovely guy, very gentle, sort of almost Rasta-like.
Yes, correct.
But and he said that he was constantly called a race traitor and all this kind of stuff. And
really?
Yeah, when he was back in Barbados after the rebel tours. But what you've also got to realize with him was that he had a bit of a marijuana addiction anyway. So
I know that for a fact, even when they were here.
Yeah, so that kind of predisposed him, I suppose, to
going
to ending up perhaps not in the best of positions, But like I say, he was a lovely guy, and he's a very gentle kind of character. But also he knew how to play the game as well, because other journalists had been over to the Caribbean and they'd seen that he was not so much destitute, because he had a place to go, but he was basically dealing drugs on the beaches there. In fact, one time he tried to sell me some drugs on the beach there in Bridgetown. So he was a nice guy, but he had his problems, and they were compounded by going on the rebel tours.
Did any of them do well? Did any of them carry? I mean, Lawrence Rowe, what was he doing at that time? Was he still working in cricket, or?
Yeah, well, Rowe had to leave Jamaica basically.
Really?
Yeah.
He went to Miami, started up a vacuum seal business there.
Hey yo.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Incredible. And
yeah, but he was perhaps
Yeah.
paid a fair bit more than the other guys.
Okay,
He was captain,
okay.
and he also took the brunt of the criticism because
Yes, yes.
he was a national hero in Jamaica. And
yeah, very much so.
He'd scored a double century and a single century on debut.
Yes, I think
That's-
Garth Webster
yes.
said there, he says,
Yeah.
he scored a double century and a century on his debut.
Yeah,
That's correct. In fact, Garth, you're quite right. I thought it was Doug Walters, but he's right. It's Lawrence Rowe, in fact.
yeah. No, but
We've got the double and
Dougie did do that later on in his career.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's
I thought it was on debut. Yeah, Garth's
Yeah, no,
right
it
though.
was
It
on
was Lawrence Rowe.
Yep.
Gary's asking here in the studio what happened to Collis King. He used to hit sixes of his back foot.
He did.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Shit.
yeah. Well, Collis is a great character, and I'm in contact with him. In fact, I just texted him the other day to say happy birthday.
Okay.
And when I was in Barbados, I met him and David Murray together one night opposite the National Stadium. There's a little bar or sort of shack,
Yeah.
rum shack, and we spent about 7 hours together. And I think Collis
He's
demolished
a third.
couple of bottles of rum, but he was no different from the beginning of the night to the end.
He was a very thirsty fellow.
Was he?
That said, he was very entertaining and very good value.
Isn't he still playing in the leagues there?
I'm not sure.
Isn't he
He was playing in the English leagues.
Yeah. I know he was playing at 63.
Yeah, but he had visa issues.
Okay.
Back into England for a little while, so I don't know whether he's still doing it, but he's certainly coaching.
Okay.
I know that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
he was a massive success on the Rebel Tour.
Phenomenal.
Any interesting stories about when you were looking for these guys? Were you touring Jamaica then, finding these people, or did you make a list of people before you got there, and then just
just clicked them off. Yeah, ticked them off one by one. Yeah.
Gee whiz.
Yes, look, going to Jamaica is it's pretty hardcore there, especially Kingston. And a lot of the travel advice from governments is not to go there because they're not
Hardcore in what respect? Criminality and
yeah. There's a lot of gang violence there.
Okay.
Okay.
It's massive.
Yeah.
And if you read the newspapers there, if you go into the Jamaica Gleaner or the Jamaica Observer, just check their websites. Every day there are a couple of murders, usually gang related.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they have curfews and the whole thing. So yeah, it's a difficult place to negotiate. But the thing I liked about it was that people are very in your face there. They're not reserved. They'll tell you exactly what you think.
Yeah.
So you don't have to prize it out of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you'll get an opinion, without having to ask for it, which when you're trying to write a book is good, because So I found that interesting. But I mean, there was a time there where I was down in downtown, which is really the sort of poorer area, but poorer old colonial area right next to the to the water there.
Yeah.
And there was there's a big park. I think it's Independence Park just nearby. And I was there. And there was a guy with sort of selling books and spruiking some kind of philosophy. And I was the only white guy, probably amongst about 20,000 people because there were markets and everything else. So I stood out there. I was with a taxi driver, and the guy that was selling these books, he was sort of dressed up in this strange suit with a hat and all the rest. He beckoned me over and he said, "Your time is coming to an end, Mon." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Yeah, the white man, it's all over."
Yeah.
And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "It's because of our hair." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Our hair is thicker. We can pick up signals." Yeah. True story. But that, I mean, that was.
Sounds like you're safe, Mike. You're safe.
I'm very safe. I'm
He's
very
got
safe.
no hair.
Yeah. So I mean, there were funny incidents like that, But
Ash, so just to interject here, So by the time 14 years had elapsed, so by the time you decided to speak to Ray Winter, had you then made up your mind that you're going to do this book?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I got a contract,
Okay, so
publishing contract.
I see. Okay, so
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yep.
okay.
And were there any success stories there with the guys? I mean, anybody that did nicely afterwards?
Yeah, well, someone like Colin Croft,
Yeah.
he was never going to be phased by any criticism. This is what I mean.
Yeah.
In a group of 20 guys, some guys who just
Yeah.
it's water off a duck's back. To other people,
Yeah.
it hits them in the gut, and they can't get
Yeah.
over it. So yeah, he went on to have a commentary career. I think he got his
He was a pilot.
aviation.
Did he fly for
license.
Delta? He
Yeah,
flew for
something like
Delta,
that,
if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
I remember, in fact, I remember going to watch a cricket match once with Hartley Alain, who we became close to in South Africa.
All right.
Now, Hartley, if you remember, was one of the
course,
real
yeah.
characters.
He is, yes.
And
He's a great guy.
he had a great guy. He had just heard that Colin Croft had just become a United Airlines or Delta pilot.
Okay. Right.
And Hartley Alain stood there and he pointed to the pitch. And he said, "Hey man, you see that pitch there? I wouldn't fly that far with Colin Croft."
Yes. Well, yeah, I'd probably think twice about it too, to be honest. But yeah, Colin seemed to do all right. He pocketed the money and got on with his life. And doesn't, and even today isn't really phased by the criticism. Yeah, and there was another guy, Derek Parry, who's an off-spinning all-rounder from the island of Nevis. I think I spoke about before.
There we go.
No, we had lost you for a moment.
We lost
there,
you for a
sorry.
bit,
Right.
but we're back.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean, was everybody that stayed here after? What sort of percentage of the guys? Was it sort of half that stayed here and went back?
I think about 4 or 5 have stayed in.
There were a number who stayed here. Alvin Kalicharan, Fard Backus, Collis, Hartley, Ezra, Sylvester, Trotman,
and
Emerson.
there were
Franklin
a
Stevenson.
couple. Franklin Stevenson, correct?
Stevenson.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you talk to Franklin?
Yeah. He has his own sort of cricket academy in.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
It's basically just a cricket field with
Yeah.
with a clubhouse, But yeah, he's
Okay.
a great guy. He's very happy
Brutus.
to talk. Very.
Yeah.
He likes to get stuck into his critics,
Yeah.
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 Yeah, he's quite. He's an engaging character, And so I spent a day with him in his academy, and while he sort of coached his boys, and they played a game and all the rest. Yeah, he's another guy who he's probably different to Croft in that although he prospered afterwards, this is Franklin, he still resents those people that criticize him for going on the rebel tours, and at one point he was almost threatening physical violence towards one guy that we talked about. So yeah, it still sticks in his craw that that they copped such bad press for going on the rebel tours, But lovely guy, really enjoyed his company. Yep.
I wanted to ask you, Ash, who were the guys that didn't want to talk to you?
Well, Croft, he just told me in no uncertain terms that he wouldn't be speaking to me, and that he had no reason to speak to me, and he didn't give a stuff about my project. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So it's because I suppose it's had such an impact on their lives. It's like it's like another thorn that they want that comes out. Did you discuss the political ramifications in your book as well? This side.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean,
okay.
It was.
I
mean, politically, see, in the Caribbean there was a big anti-apartheid movement there. A lot of the guys were. A lot of politicians there really exploited the tours,
jumped on that.
Showed that they were holier than thou, I suppose.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they made a lot of um, a lot of they made a lot of the fact that in their eyes, that these guys going to South Africa, as I said before, were taking blood money, and they were dishonouring their race in their eyes. So they were able to exploit that back home, and there was quite a lot of sentiment against the tours. But then again, on a sort of man in the street level, there was a lot of sympathy for the guys because they were thinking, well, this is their profession; they should be allowed to go and do what they want.
It was a fine line.
Fine line.
Did you chat to some of the guys here that organised the tour on this side? I don't know who the organisers were on this side.
Well, I would imagine Ali Bacher,
and
Joe Pomensky
were pretty big in it. But I tried to speak to Ali Bacher, but he told me that his daughters had forbidden him from doing any more media or something like that. I don't know. He just wasn't into it. So I was just going to grab a tissue. What you say?
Yeah, sure. No problem. It's amazing that these guys, and in South Africa it was a thing where the sports lovers wanted cricketers wanted sports. They wanted it here so badly, and we'd have gone to any lengths to get something. We had this big, this huge market here that was looking desperate for sports.
Well, despite the fact that there were obviously big political ramifications, especially for those players, the greater following in this country because of apartheid were whites, effectively little kids and so on. I mean, they revered these West Indians. Yeah, and if you look at the little clips on YouTube, for instance, I think it's called Branded a Rebel. You'll see there the following. And, the sad reality is, it was pre-94. So a lot of the colours and blacks were sadly not allowed at the games. But I think what got up people's noses in South Africa, and rightly so, was the fact that these guys, the government in their wisdom, gave them honorary white citizenship. So you had this...
what a night, what a farce.
Which was really wrong.
Yet
they were getting kicked out of restaurants, they were getting kicked off buses, they were getting kicked off trains.
It's because the apartheid was so
which is very, very sad.
It's just a nightmare on all sides as far as the politics goes.
And we'll see. They were able to do things that ordinary black people weren't able to do. So they were able to go to beaches and hotels and nightclubs, and fraternise with white women or whatever, which apparently they did to quite a large degree. So they were able to do these things that ordinary black people weren't able to do. So
crazy situation. It's just it's this whole thing where you get a piece of paper and you can do something, and meantime, it just shows the
I think
the craziness of the
that's what
apartheid
made
system.
it crazy. That's what made it crazy. But I mean, there were instances. I remember when Ezra played here, for instance, between Ezra, Carl Baumeister, and I, we shared rooms on tour, and there were a lot of places that basically ejected Ezra. And then we'd obviously feel compelled to leave with Ezra. But there were other places who accepted him with open arms.
It's just it's like a ticket not to get in trouble with the military police or the police.
Well,
it's crazy.
I don't know if Collis or Hartley ever told you about the incident in Durban, where they had a hired car, an Avis car, and they were driving through Durban North. And the police thought that they'd stolen the car, and they opened fire on them.
Opened fire?
They started shooting at them.
Good Lord.
Meanwhile, I mean, they were two great guys, two great cricketers, so that was at a time when I think there was a curfew here. Unbelievable. But then, Ash, I wanted to ask you, who else did not want to talk to you?
Emerson Trotman didn't want to talk to me.
Where was he, by the way? Was he in Holland or back in the West Indies?
In Barbados. He runs a bar there at a place called St. Lawrence's Gap, which is a tourist area in Bridgetown, or just out of Bridgetown. And he was very sort of confronting, when I went to speak with him at the bar, because I showed up, rocked up at the bar and introduced myself, and then he basically said, "Look, if you write anything about me, I'll sue you. You know.
But was this after you told him there's no money on the table for him? Because I'm sure if you put a bit of money there, he would have spoken.
Well, you know what happened was he called up his manager. I mean, I couldn't believe that he had a manager. He's the least known of all the rebels, I suppose.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, he was quite well known here.
Yeah, he became well known here.
but in a broader cricket sense, you know, if someone said who's Emerson Trotman, if someone says who's Lawrence Rowe, most people go but Emerson Trotman.
Okay.
So he called up his agent, and while I was there, because I could see that he was sort of interested as well. You know, like people want to tell their story. You know,
Of course.
it's human nature to want to tell your story. So he called up his manager, and then he said, "Oh, you know, if you give me $5,000 US, you know." And I was like,
I had a feeling that might have been. Yeah, correct. I had a feeling that did others also ask you for payment or suggest that you make a payment?
Yeah, that happened. Yeah,
I'm sure it would have.
frequently, but not in that sort of straight up kind of way. You know?
Yeah. And Ash, if you
He gave me a
recall,
beer though. He gave me a free beer.
Oh, really?
Thanks, Emerson. but I can totally understand. That it's not a subject that they want to discuss. It's probably a part of their lives that they just want to say goodbye to. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
Why is it
bringing it up? You know, can have all sorts of ramifications that they don't know about. You know, people still hold very deep opinions about it. You know, you don't know whether it's your employer or whoever. You know.
Sure.
Yeah.
Were all of them banned? Every single one.
Yeah. Oh, immediately banned. From playing for West.
And so that
playing first class cricket in the Caribbean again. They can still play in England.
The English League
in South Africa.
Yes.
Yeah.
But they couldn't play in West Indies. But see, a lot of them were getting a little bit older as well. And they weren't wanted in England either, you know. But whereas
the county cricket we're talking about.
Yeah, they could have come back to the West Indies and been coaches and things like that. But they couldn't even play club cricket in West Indies, you know. They couldn't even play club, you know. And,
was there anything that you came across that really surprised you?
I mean, the whole thing was surprising, really. But I did try to speak to Desmond Haynes.
Oh, Desmond Haynes, another one,
yeah. But he told me in no uncertain terms to get stuffed, and didn't have any, because I had to finance the thing myself, you know, to get over there and everything. You know, so I was there for like 5 weeks, and every day I had to kick goals. You know, I couldn't relax. You know, I had stuff to do. Work to be done. And he said to me, you know, I don't care how fucking far you've travelled, or you know how.
Is that what Desmond said?
Yeah, effing this and effing that. You know.
Jeez.
I'm not going to speak to you. So that was on a. So that night was also the night when I went to see Emerson Trotman.
Yeah.
And I was like, I came back from that.
Oh, it's like deflated.
Really quite despondent, you know.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And then the next morning, I woke up and I looked out the window, and I could see the beach near where I was, and the sort of palm trees and the white sand and the azure blue sort of sea, and it always should have looked very attractive, but to me it was nothing. I just felt terrible, you know.
Yeah, I'm sure.
There were times like that during my journey, you know, when people. I mean, I had a self-interest, you know, but other people who were peripheral characters maybe didn't. But the thing about Haynes was that he had made his Test debut at the same time as Richard Austin.
Yes,
and they had shared their hotel room together. Wow. So it would have been good for Haynes, you know, to ask him, you know, did you what did you think about Austin? You know, was there any sign at all that perhaps he would have ended up the way he did? You know, things like that.
Great question.
But, But as I said, he definitely wasn't coming to the party.
And just as a matter of interest, What about Moses? Why did Moses not want to talk to you, Ezra?
Um,
I don't think I ever asked you.
because he was coaching the, I think he was coaching the women's team.
That's right. Quite right. I beg
And
your
he
pardon.
thought, although he didn't say it, I can tell that he thought that he was going to bring up something that would jeopardize his job. So he
Yes.
wasn't.
Yes.
Yeah,
So-
nobody wants to do that. Oh.
Yeah, but he was still keen, I could see. And he said to me that I could write his biography. But the thing was that I didn't have a contract to write his biography. I had
Yes.
a contract to write the Rebel Tour story,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did
So
you
I
at
just
any
wanted-
stage? Did you at any stage feel that you were going to not be in a position to deliver to the publisher the contract that you had entered into?
Yeah, I always had those feelings. Yeah. When it was hard to deal with actually,
Yeah.
because you think that you're letting down your family, you're letting down yourself,
Yeah.
Sure.
letting down the publisher. You put all this time and effort into it. Especially like I said, when you get rejections and stuff, you really have to dig deep to come back. So what happened was after the Haynes and Trotman rejection, the next morning, as I said, I was feeling rather crap, and
Yes.
I went on a. So I thought, oh well, I'll do something different the first half of today, and I went on a tour of Bridgetown. And the tour guide happened to be a major cricket fan, and he was really happy to have me on the tour, and he was really friendly. And he took me to a cricket match, a local cricket match afterwards.
Yeah.
And we went into the dressing room, and we found pictures of some of the Rebel guys,
Wow.
in their club sides, back in the late 70s and early 80s, and that led to me meeting someone there who knew someone else who got me an interview with someone who was very close to one of the rebels.
Yes. Yes.
So it sort of regenerated my zest for it.
Yes,
But
yes.
there were times sitting here in the where I am right now, where I look out to the backyard and think, God, is this ever going to end?
Yeah.
It was right. It was tough. It was tough.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
Have you got any stories or anecdotes or things that stood out for you?
Let's see. Yeah, I mean, one of the interesting things was when I went to Trinidad. And I was looking for Bernard Julian. This was another.
Yeah.
Bernard Julian was a West Indian all-rounder from the mid-70s who was fated as the new Gary Sobers,
Quite correct.
which is a pretty heavy mantle to have to bear. And ultimately he didn't live up to that. But he still, like a lot of these guys that were the rebel cricketers, they had moments where they were on top of the world, where they had excelled in ways that other players couldn't. They had this great talent, but couldn't fulfill it often enough. Anyway, I'd contacted him before I went over to the West Indies, and I booked a flight to Trinidad, Port of Spain, to meet him because he said, give me a shout when you're over here.
Okay.
So I gave him a shout. He just kept on blanking me, and we set up times to visit and to meet each other, and he wouldn't show up. And so there was one day where we went to Queen's Park, the test ground in Trinidad. It's sort of flanked by mountains, so it's beautiful. It's a beautiful, beautiful test cricket ground, and I met Derek Murray, who was a veteran West Indies keeper from the 70s as well, who knew Bernard really well, and he had organised for Bernard to show. Okay. But in the end, it was just me and Derek because Bernard didn't show. But I had a lovely lunch there.
Yes.
Recommend the chicken. Yeah.
And what about what about Alvin Kalicharan? Because he, with respect, could also be quite a difficult character. Kali.
Yeah, he's in.
England, is he not?
He's in. Yeah, he's in America.
Oh, he's in
He's in
America
North
now.
Carolina.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
But did you?
He runs a
did
sort
he?
of coaching clinic there.
Okay.
Did you ever get to chat to that guy that blanked you? What was it?
Sorry, you just broke up.
Oh no! Did you get to chat to that guy that blanked you? That
Bernard Julian.
Bernard Julian. Did you eventually get hold of him?
Yeah, right. Okay. I chased him all around Trinidad. Yeah, I did, and it was almost. It was kind of crazy because it was almost as though people would tell me they'd seen him.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'd
right.
go to that place where they'd seen him. I'd knock on the door, and then they'd say, "Oh, he just
Gone.
left," or "He doesn't live here anymore." Or, you know, it always got comical, you know.
Yeah.
Oh my word!
It's kind of crazy, you know. But he obviously didn't want to speak because
Yeah, cold
Yes.
you
feet.
see the thing
Yeah.
Yes.
with Bernard is, the thing with Bernard was that he had health problems, and he was a very good-looking guy in his
Yeah.
pomp,
His day.
you know.
Yes.
And he'd had cancer and a few other things, and I think he was just very aware that the sort of
Okay.
difference between him now and them was huge, and he was probably just a bit anxious about that. And Derek Murray, whom I met at Queen's Park, you know, he said that he'd had similar problems with Bernard showing
With
up
Bernard.
at
Yeah.
social
Yeah.
events, you know, that he
Yeah.
wouldn't come because he had anxiety troubles, you know. So
Okay.
Shame.
yeah,
It
that
was
was
obviously every time he was okay, and then the time comes, and then he's out. Well,
Hey, what about Alvin Kalicharan? Because he could be quite a difficult guy. Ashley.
yeah. He's a test. He could be a testy little fella. Yeah, he's only about 5'5", but
yes,
sort
he's
of-
your car.
Said he could play.
yeah, but he's got bandy legs and he sort of walks like a gunslinger, you know.
Yeah.
And when he heard that I was Australian, he immediately assumed that I was a massive beer drinker. And so he organised for us to meet at 10 a.m. at a sports bar opposite where he lives in North Carolina. So here we
You're
are.
not even we drinking beers
The
here,
only
right?
only people in the sports bar. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're the only people there, and
Jeez.
you know,
That's
here he is,
amazing.
not
10
back
a.m..
the,
First ones at the door.
Having a cup of tea.
yeah.
Drinking tea.
And he kept on saying to me, "Whatever you do, don't tell my wife." I was like, "Okay." But he was, yeah. I mean, if they didn't want to talk to me about the Rebel tours,
Yeah.
yeah, that was a negative. But the positive was
Yeah.
that at least if I met them, I could tell
Yeah.
a story about who they were, how they reacted
Yeah.
to certain questions I asked, and why they did, and how that pertained
Yeah.
to the Rebel tours.
Yeah.
So I was able to get a feel for his life and whatever. But I suppose, okay, yeah. Now, then the most shocking story I haven't related in this interview is probably the story of Everton Mattis, who was a
Gee.
very, elegant batsman in the early 80s. And he played 4 tests against England and then was dropped. And Mr. Mattis told me, he said that he was dropped because he had an afro and Clive Lloyd didn't like it. You know, a lot of the guys had grudges against
Wow.
Clive Lloyd
Gee.
Yeah.
because they felt that he
Yeah.
had too much power and that he could drop you for anything, you know, your haircut or
Yeah.
the fact you didn't wear your clothes this way or that, you know.
Mm.
So
He was.
anyway, Everton, he was another ghetto boy, you know, from Jamaica, Kingston. And he came back and he said after the Rebel tours, you know, he was harassed by police and
Wow.
he endured a terrible time. And so he eventually moved to New York. But when he was in New York, you know, he sort of went off the rails there, and he was dealing drugs and got shot. Actually
Yeah.
got shot in
Hey.
the leg. Yeah.
Wow.
And when you're with him, and he's a lovely guy, you know, and I really enjoyed my time with Everton, you know. But when you're with him, he's, you know, when he's walking, you can hear his leg sort of snap almost because it's where
really?
the brace in his, you know, inside his knee is now, you know. So
Yeah.
yeah,
See, with
his story just absolutely blew me away. You know, the fact that
yeah.
you know it got so hostile for him in Jamaica, he had to come to New
Yeah.
York, and then when he got to New York, you know, things just fell apart. You know, but he's rebuilt
Yeah.
his life, and you know, he's got lovely kids and a lovely wife,
Okay.
and you know, they
Wow.
live in
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
he's
efficiency in the north of New York, up New
yeah.
York State. So, yeah,
He's
he's doing
rebuilt
well.
his life very well. In fact,
Yeah.
I'm a friend
Yep.
of his on Facebook. He was the
Yeah,
guy
yeah.
during one of the matches here. I think it was against one of the internationals test matches against
Yep.
South Africa.
Yeah.
They went to the El Cid, which was in those days one of P's
Oh,
top
yeah.
restaurants.
A restaurant, yeah.
And the waitress came around and said, "How's your steak?" And he said, "No, man, it's like my Thai pad." Like his thigh pad.
A Thai pad.
And Ash, just lastly, from a player perspective, Sylvester Clark, he could have.
Yeah.
I assume he could have been quite an elusive guy
Yeah. Yes.
because he wasn't a man of many words.
No. Well, see, Sylvester was perhaps the most dominant player on the Rebel tours, on the two tours.
Yes, very much.
He scared the daylights out of all the batsmen that he bowled to, and Barry Richards pretty much said to me that the reason why he retired after the first tour was because Sylvester sort of shook him up so much, you know.
Yeah, he was lethal.
The first tour, you know. Yeah. But
Yeah.
he passed away in 1999, so I met up with
Wow.
his wife and his son,
Okay,
also-
sorry, correct.
who's also played a few games for Barbados.
Yeah.
But he's a fast bowler, but not thick set like Sylvester. His son is very sort of thin and long and almost gangly, you know.
Yeah,
But lovely guys. But yeah, she had a really touching story about how, you know, Sylvester, how just one morning, you know, Sylvester got up and wasn't feeling that well, and you know he was going to take his son Shaquem to cricket where Sylvester played, and he went back to bed, and I think that he got up to go. He got up to go to the toilet, then collapsed and died. You know, just
Gee,
sad,
was
like that.
very sad.
crazy.
Yeah, he was a
but
great player.
She related that story, and you know, it was lovely to, and I'm still in contact with her as well. You know, but yeah,
So effectively,
obviously this is, you know, and Shaquem, his son was only 3 or 4 at the time, so he barely has a
Wow.
memory.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
man.
yeah.
He's been back
Very
to South
sad.
Africa, his son,
Yeah,
and he's really said he really enjoyed it because everyone remembered Sylvester, and they were so glad to see him, you know,
Yeah.
see his son
Yeah.
in South Africa. Yeah.
yeah.
There was two questions I want to ask. Is one Gary was asking as well was did you interview any of the South African players at the time,
yeah.
and then also did any of the West Indians get South African citizenship that they could play for South Africa as well or not?
It's a good question. I don't think so.
I don't know.
Great question. That
I don't think
I
they
don't
did.
think so.
Yeah. I just see Johan Cup saying, I remember correctly, Ezra Mosley did play Test cricket in 1991 for England. So I wonder.
Yes,
Correct.
versus against England. Yeah. You see, what happened was the ban was rescinded in 1989, I think. So that gave some of the younger players a chance to come back because
Oh wow! Okay.
and
Yeah.
he was still good enough to play for the West Indies, and he I think he got 2 caps or something.
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah, but
Okay.
none of the others did. But essentially by that stage, most of them were over, which you know they were late 30s or even 40 odd. You know by that stage, so that none of them were going to play again really. But Ezra was still good enough, still fiery enough. You know.
And the South African players,
you know, Mike, you know, to be able to
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
Sorry?
if you remember, he,
Oh,
he
yes,
broke
yeah.
he broke Graham Gooch's hand.
Graham
I
Gooch.
think his in his
exactly.
debut test. Yeah,
Okay, gee whiz.
got one to
You
come off
can watch that on
a
YouTube.
length.
It's pretty compelling footage, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
And then just to go back to Gino's
Hartley-
question, yeah, I beg your pardon. No,
Yeah,
carry on, sorry.
Yeah. I was just going to say, Hartley and Lane was another guy who
Great
really
character.
impressed on the second tour. Yeah, great character.
Yeah.
And I met him in England, actually.
In a bar,
He lives
in a
in
bar. Did you
I
meet
met
him in a
in
bar?
Canterbury. Well,
In a bar.
Well, wherever he goes, he makes it almost seem like a bar, you know. We're in,
Yeah, great character.
in the cathedral, at Canterbury Cathedral, you know, the sort of the mother Anglican church in England, you know. And we were down in the crypt there, and he was telling me some story about cricket. He was, you know, we could have been in a bar or something like that. And I saw these two old women there, and they was like a total shock. I couldn't believe that someone was talking about the things that he was talking about, you know. Yeah, he's very, there's no filter for Hartley. Yeah, no
Correct.
filter.
Very
It all
animated
comes
fella.
out.
Oh, really?
Always very animated.
But he's still very, very slim and
Yeah.
looks
He
really
was built like a
athletic,
chisel.
you know. And I got him to mime his run up and, you know, outside the church. I took some video of him.
Yeah.
Very impressive guy, you know.
Yeah, he bowled very quickly in Port Elizabeth when he hit Graham on the head.
Oh, my word.
Yeah.
But Ash, to go back to
Pollock.
he hit
sorry.
Graham on the head.
I
Yeah,
spoke
he
to
very
I
quick
spoke to
that
Graham
day.
Pollock. I spoke
Yep.
to Graham Pollock,
Gee whiz.
and he mentioned Hartley and that ball that
Yes.
Wow.
that laid him out, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Jeez,
and
like-
and
Did he have a helmet on?
yeah.
Oh, lucky.
Yeah, very lucky. But he
Lucky
came
man.
back, I think, later in the innings. But
Yes.
yeah, I mean, the thing was that the South Africans at that point in time just weren't used to that kind of pace, I suppose,
Yeah.
Yeah.
delivered by 3 or 4 different guys, like a pace battery. They might have been used to facing a side where there was one guy who could bowl at that pace. But when
Yes.
you've got 3 or
Good
4
point.
coming at you, you're non-stop.
Yeah.
You know, and
No
that was
respite.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
respite.
No respite. Yeah.
And the amazing
Ash,
thing
just-
was that this was apparently the West Indies' second team, you know. So yeah,
Correct.
Oh, really? Oh,
Correct.
wow.
Quite correct. Well, if you cast your mind back to that era, I think Andy Roberts might have. Yeah, he was still there. They had Andy Roberts, Michael Holding, Colin Croft, Joel Garner, Wayne Daniel,
Yep.
Malcolm Marshall,
Mark-
Courtney Walsh.
yep.
They had a hell of a side.
Was
And-
Malcolm Marshall in the Rebel side as well?
No.
No. You didn't.
No.
Did he come
was
later
asked-
on to play?
He played for Natal.
He did.
Ah.
Yep. He was asked.
Was he asked to go? Oh, really?
Yeah. He was in Ali Bakker's sights, no question.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
I
wanted
think
him.
Viv Richards was as well, was he not?
Oh yeah,
Didn't they offer Viv a blank check?
Yeah, $1 million, I think. Yep.
But it just shows that some of the guys actually did say. So some of the guys did say no as well. They just
Yes,
refused to
they
come.
did. Yeah, they did. Big,
Did you-
And the reason was
Okay.
that they felt that they, you know, they presented it as a question of principle. You know, that they would not sell out
Yeah.
their black brothers by going to play in a country that
Yes.
discriminated against people of their own colour, which
Yeah.
was a fair point. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the other point that was pointed out to me by Roland Butcher, the first black guy to play for England, was that they could afford to do that in the sense that they were stable members of the West Indies first side. They had
Yes.
commercial deals, and that they were sort of embedded in the establishment of West Indies cricket, whereas these other guys were either not being selected, slightly over the hill, or whatever, you know. So
Yeah,
they were
yeah,
on a different trajectory. So the question that Roland Butcher asked me, or asked in general, was that you know, would these guys like Vivian Richards and Michael Holding, who were very against the tours, and you know, with good reason, would they have been against the tours if they were in the same position as
Correct. Good
guys
point.
who were on it? So,
Yeah.
Great point.
Sure. And so the other guys didn't have much of a choice as far as their life went.
Well, when
Yeah.
that much money is dangled in front of you, and coming from the impoverished regions that they came from, I mean, David Lloyd George, who was the British Prime Minister in the
30s.
Yeah.
First World War around then, he called the Caribbean the slums of empire, because it really was, very very difficult place to live because of the poverty,
Yeah.
So
I see Johan Cup's got a comment here. He says Ian Botham wrote in his book that he declined an offer for Rebel Tour due to his friendship and respect for Viv Richards.
Yeah, they're
See,
best mates.
they're good mates, those two.
So Ash, you've overcome the one hurdle. You've now done all the research. How long did it then take you to put it all together?
about probably about a year, I suppose.
Okay. And then I would imagine, then comes the next big obstacle, the selling of the book.
Yeah, marketing, and also Gary's asking about the sort of I know we haven't got too much time left. We can't keep you all day, but it's all night for you. It's all day for us.
But with dinner on the table over here. Yeah.
At least you guys don't have load shedding over there. We got load shedding.
Jesus. Let's not get into that.
Yeah, I'm not going to go there. But yeah, just the conclusions that you came to with the book, how you sort of wrapped it up, and your difficulties in marketing and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, one of the disappointing things was I didn't really get much response from South Africa, to tell you the truth.
Incredible.
But it was very hard to get the book into South Africa to begin with, anyway.
Wow.
Because
Why?
Because I think the pandemic was on at that point in time.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
And also just that there were no, we tried to put it out to a few different people and a few publishing houses, but no one was really interested in taking it up.
Okay.
And I didn't get any, and I pushed it to a few different newspapers and things, and I didn't get any response. And it was
okay.
tough. I mean, I think I got one review, in some obscure publication, and apart from this, it's. I may have done one other interview, but this is pretty much it, Whereas in England, I got a ton of coverage. In the Caribbean, it was mixed, In Jamaica, got good coverage. In Trinidad, but in Barbados, not so much. There was a reluctance there to pursue the story.
And in
Australia,
general,
it was. Yeah. Sorry, go on.
No, carry on. I beg your pardon. No, carry on.
Yeah, in Australia, it was good as well. Like I got a lot of coverage here, and I think as well, that it was the Black Lives Matter movement was happening at the same time, so that was that really gave it a boost too. So.
Yeah. And Ash, was it better than you expected or anticipated?
You mean the reception of the book?
Yeah.
Ultimately, I probably did about. I mean, I did do a lot of. There was a lot of interest, and like I said, just mainly from England, Australia, and the Caribbean. So I probably did over 40 interviews. There was a lot of press coverage, and then the book, won some awards. So it was great.
Yes,
great.
MCC Book of the Year. It was
well done.
The British, I think, Telegraph Cricket Book of the Year. It was is it the William Hill? What's it called?
William Hill, I think I read.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, William Hill. It was runner-up for the Book of the Year for that. It was a Cricket Writers Club in England that was won an award there as well. So it was.
Wow.
And that was great.
It's also got the Gino Spot Book of the Year award as well.
Well, that's the most prestigious of the lot.
Oh, no. But actually, That's fantastic, man. And like Gary says, the conclusions. I mean, and what if you've got out of the book yourself as well?
Yeah. Well,
I mean, not money wise, but like for your soul.
I mean, I didn't make any money out. Money wise, I just broke even. Really, I didn't.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, prize money from winning awards sort of, allowed me to break even from the book.
Well done.
But it's
good.
transformed my life because now, I mean, I'm friends with Mike, which is great.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also, I've got all these, friends in England and West Indies I've never had before, and we're trying to set up a documentary to.
Yes. A great idea. You mentioned that to me.
Yeah. It's just trying to get the finances right for that, and hopefully come to South Africa where I can meet you guys and. We can take Lawrence Row around and
we'll take you to the sports bar at 10 o'clock in the morning.
To the El Cid. But Ashley Gray, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. It's been fantastic to chat about this. An incredible,
sorry.
Incredible time, Thanks for your time. I'll give you a shot tomorrow. Your time tomorrow.
Yeah.
Daytime.
And
I'll give you a shot tomorrow.
We will also be rebroadcasting this on Tuesday night, so the guys can tune in as well.
I'll phone you tomorrow.
Yeah, tell me the times and I'll promote it.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll phone you tomorrow.
We'll send you the links. Thank you.
Have a good evening, Ash.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you to our sponsors, Spa and Fitch and Leeds, and of course Samobia. And we'll see you on Tuesday. See you on Tuesday. Make sure you pop in. Which camera am I? This one.
Relax, sit down. Coming out of PE town. Want a drink, find a shot. Never mind your liver, get to Gino's spot.
Gino's spot.
Get to Gino's spot.
Gino's spot.
Have a laugh, have a giggle, and exercise your middle. Have a Gino shot.